Karen called cops on my aunt not knowing she's a retired federal agent. She was mid-sentence yelling about neighborhood image and unauthorized visitors when the officer's radio cut her off. Uh, Unit 4, be advised. The subject in question is a retired federal agent. Confirmed. Karen's face drained of color faster than wine spilling on a white rug. Her mouth open, but nothing came out. I stood there with my arms folded, watching her ego collapse in real time. My aunt didn't flinch, just held her stare with the same look she used to give me when I got caught lying about homework. I had a feeling Karen was about to learn the hard way that some people you just don't mess with. It started a week earlier when Aunt Liv moved in with me after selling her house back east. She wanted quiet, greenery, maybe start a community garden. She'd spent 22 years in federal service, some of it she could talk about. Most she couldn't. What she didn't expect was to go to war with a woman wielding a clipboard, a Facebook group, and the delusion of power. My Aunt Olivia lived to friends. Agent Monroe, to the folks who knew her back in D.C., moved in with me 3 weeks after her retirement ceremony. No medals, no pomp, just a quiet dinner with a few old colleagues and a one-way drive to our sleepy California suburb of Willow Glen. She'd told me, I've spent 2 decades looking over my shoulder. All I want now is peace and dirt under my nails. We bought her a modest home down the street from mine. Nothing fancy, just a one-story with creaky shutters and a long backyard perfect for tomatoes and sugar snap peas. She'd been in town for 4 days when Karen appeared. I should have warned her. Karen had been the self-proclaimed president of the Willow Glen Preservation Committee for years. Not a real HOA, just a Facebook group turned neighborhood regime. She ran it with the smug energy of a traffic cop without a badge and a clipboard full of made-up laws. She'd handed out more violations than our actual code inspector. The difference, his had legal backing. Karen's were printed on pastel paper from a Staples coupon book, but she wasn't harmless. She'd forced out renters, bullied elderly residents into repainting their homes, made immigrants tear down porch flags, and because she never actually said anything racist, people let her do it, until Aunt Liv came to town. That Monday morning, I walked over to drop off a set of hedge clippers when I saw Karen standing in Liv's driveway, hands on hips, clipboard out, sunglasses perched like she thought she was the director of the FBI. "Excuse me," she said, in that tone people use when they mean you don't belong here. Liv didn't even look up. She was kneeling, pulling weeds from a flower bed she hadn't even planted. Karen tried again. "I said, excuse me. This is a uniform landscape neighborhood. You're not following Willow Glen design code?" That was Karen speak for "you don't fit my aesthetic." Liv stood up slowly, wiped her hands on her jeans, looked Karen straight in the eye. "I wasn't aware this neighborhood had any binding design code." Karen's smile was tight. "It's in the community handbook. Got a copy, I'll have someone deliver one." "Great. I'll have someone read it." Karen blinked like the sass didn't compute. Then she made the mistake of pointing. "You'll need to replace that mailbox," she said. "It's not compliant." The mailbox was standard, regulation height, no rust, American flag decal. What Karen really didn't like was that Liv's last name was Monroe, and the skin under her gardening hat was black. I stepped in before it got worse. "Morning." "Karen," I said, "I'm sure you're just here to welcome my aunt." Karen turned on me like I'd tracked mud on her carpet. "Your aunt? She's staying here. She owns the place." Karen pursed her lips. "Then I assume she'll be attending the community compliance meeting Thursday night." Liv raised an eyebrow. "Only if there's pie." Karen walked off, fuming. Liv watched her go, then turned to me and said, "I've interrogated cartel bosses with more warmth." The next notice came that evening, folded on her doormat in a plastic sleeve, like some kind of suburban summons. "Violation improper vehicle storage. Black SUV with out-of-state plates parked in driveway more than 48 hours. Fine $75 payable to Willow Glen Residential Review Board." Liv looked at it, then looked at me. "You ever heard of this board?" I shook my head. "It's not real. It's Karen." Liv said nothing. She just folded the notice in half, tossed it in the trash, and went inside to make dinner. But Karen wasn't done. The next day, a landscaper arrived unannounced, claiming he'd been contracted by the HOA to prune Liv's roses to community standard length. Liv told him if he touched her bushes, she'd personally teach him the full legal definition of trespassing and criminal mischief. He left in a hurry. Then came the call to the police. Karen claimed she saw a suspicious woman casing mailboxes on her Ring camera, said she was possibly armed, said she was threatening to destabilize the neighborhood. When officers responded, they found Liv on her porch, drinking chamomile tea and reading The Grapes of Wrath. She smiled when they walked up, and when dispatch asked for an ID, she handed over a card that made both cops blink. Olivia Monroe, retired special agent, U.S. Department of Justice. That radio crackle changed everything, and Karen, standing behind her hedge, phone still filming, watched her fantasy unravel in real time. Because this wasn't just a battle of personalities anymore. This was a war of facts, and Liv had just started sharpening her garden shears. After the police left that day, Aunt Liv didn't speak for a while. She just sat on the porch, tea cooling beside her, flipping through an old leather notebook like it was a ritual. Her fingers paused, and then she wrote a single line: intentional misuse of law enforcement, motivated by perceived authority. Then she closed the notebook and looked at me. "This isn't just petty," she said. "This woman's trying to build control out of nothing, and people are letting her." The next morning, we went digging. I helped her pull every document from the county website that referenced Willow Glen's past HOA, which unsurprisingly had been officially dissolved in 2012 due to lack of participation and voter interest. What Karen had done was resurrect the aesthetic of a homeowners association, same language, same forms, even a mock-up website using a Wix template, but with none of the actual legal foundation. And she'd been weaponizing that illusion for years. We found an entire digital paper trail. Liv, being Liv, called in a few favors, some old friends from federal cybersecurity teams who owed her quiet debts, and within hours, we had access to archived posts, expired domain purchases, and flagged Venmo accounts. Here's what we found. A Google Drive folder called Violation Reports, active cases. Inside were over 60 PDFs, names, photos, addresses. Most were minority families, elderly homeowners, or new residents. A spreadsheet called Fee Tracker, more than $18,000 in collected citations over 3 years, labeled as community enforcement fees, deposited directly into a personal account under the name Karen R. Little, a Facebook group with 2 I-100 members called Preserve Willow Glen. The posts were filled with Karen's rants. Too many renters, one hostler's rising crime. We need to protect property values by encouraging uniformity. Certain aesthetics signal lower standards. It wasn't just annoying anymore. It was coordinated social discrimination masked as neighborhood order. And Liv, she was done watching. She called a friend from the local legal aid network and scheduled a town info session. The plan: inform residents of their rights, tell them the truth, break the silence Karen had depended on. But before we could post the flyer, something happened that told us Karen knew we were coming. We woke up to a rock through Liv's window. Wrapped in it was a single sheet of paper. Outsiders bring chaos. You don't belong. Liv picked it up, examined the edges, sniffed it, then smiled coldly. Same printer ink as the fake violation notices, she muttered. Same paper weight. That's her? She turned to me and said something I'll never forget. She just went from civil nuisance to criminal actor. Let's treat her accordingly. By noon, Liv had printed 50 copies of the actual neighborhood zoning guidelines. She highlighted the lines that stated there was no HOA, no design review board, and no enforcement structure beyond municipal code. She also printed screenshots of Karen's Venmo requests and the citation sheets with fake seals. We canvassed the neighborhood, one porch at a time. Some people were stunned, some embarrassed, but most were furious. I paid her twice last year, one man exclaimed. For not trimming my ficus, she made my grandmother cry over a mailbox color. Another woman whispered. Said it made our home look Section 8. It wasn't just Liv who'd been targeted. It was half the block. And just like that, the silence cracked. We held the info session 3 nights later at the community center. We expected 15 people. 72 showed up. Liv stood in front with a whiteboard in calm, commanding posture, federal badge not on display. But her presence alone enough to silence a room. She walked them through every tactic Karen had used, the illusion of structure, the fear of noncompliance, the use of shame and isolation, and the most powerful weapon, community ignorance. When she was done, no one clapped. They just stood. Ready? That's when Mrs. Vaughn, an 81-year-old widow, raised her hand. She made me pull down my wind chimes, said they were disruptive to neighborhood tranquility. Someone across the room shouted, "Screw tranquility," and then the crowd laughed. But there was fire in it, the kind that burns down fake empires. The very next morning, a sign appeared at the end of our street. Big block letters on a piece of plywood nailed to a stop sign. No HOA, no fees, no Karen. Someone had spray painted it overnight. No one claimed it, but no one took it down either. That's how the revolt started. Not with a lawsuit, not with a fight, but with plywood and a can of paint. By noon, 3 more signs popped up. Ask before you pay. Fake HOA. Charn. Real crime. Karen lied. We paid. The local Facebook groups were buzzing. Screenshots of Karen's notices were being shared and ridiculed. People were comparing violations like war stories. And by that afternoon, one of the local reporters caught wind. Channel 5 News rolled up around 3 p.m. with a camera crew and a blonde anchor named Mallory Barnes who smiled like she was born in front of a teleprompter. She asked to speak with Aunt Liv. Liv agreed on one condition: I get to bring the receipts. They filmed her in the backyard under the pergola. Liv laid out a stack of documents, real ones, and walked Mallory through it, all the forged notices, the fake board titles, the thousands in illegally collected fees, the surveillance photos, the rock through the window. It aired that night. By 7:45, fake HOA Karen was trending on local Twitter. Karen tried to spin it, posted on the Preserve Willow Glen Facebook group. This is a coordinated attack by a newcomer who doesn't understand our culture. I was trying to keep standards high. I was trying to maintain peace. People weren't buying it anymore. Especially not when someone leaked the audio of her at a private HOA planning meeting saying, "Some people just don't belong in this neighborhood." You know what I mean. That was the tipping point. The following day, over 50 residents marched to her house. No pitchforks, just folding chairs. They sat on her lawn and refused to leave. They held signs: "Stop the fraud. We want real representation. You don't scare us anymore." Karen came out screaming about trespassing and loitering. She waved her clipboard like it was a badge. Then she made her final mistake. She threatened to call the police again. This time, they came prepared. 2 cruisers, 1 detective, and a code enforcement officer from the county. They had a folder, a real one. Inside were formal complaints, sworn testimonies, and a warrant for her devices. The detective knocked. Karen opened the door, already ranting. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes, ma'am," he said calmly. "You're the reason we're here." They seized her laptop, her phone, her fake violation forms. And when they found the spreadsheet with over 60 names and the word target next to half of them, that's when they read her Miranda rights. She screamed all the way to the cruiser, "I was just protecting the neighborhood." But no one clapped. No one defended her. Even her so-called compliance deputies deleted their accounts. The Facebook group was closed by sunset. That night, the porch lights stayed on. Wind chimes sang again. Garden gnomes returned. A neighbor put out lawn chairs and handed out lemonade like we were celebrating a holiday. Liv sat next to me and just said, "Tyrants fall faster when the people they rule stop pretending they're powerless." She took a sip of tea, especially clipboard tyrants. Justice isn't just about arrest warrants. It's about what grows back after the storm. Karen pled guilty to misdemeanor harassment, impersonating a public official, and unlawful solicitation of funds. She avoided jail but paid $28,000 in restitution to the families she extorted, many of whom used the money to repaint homes, replant gardens, or replace things she had fined them for in the first place. She moved out of Willow Glen a week after sentencing. No one said goodbye, but this story isn't about her anymore. It's about what happened after. Aunt Liv, of course, became something of a local legend. Not because she wanted attention, God knows she didn't, but because she didn't just dismantle Karen's fake HOA, she replaced it with something real. Within a month, she'd helped organize a real neighborhood council, not for enforcement, but for empowerment. It had bylaws. Yes, but they were voted on. It had meetings, but open to all. And it had committees not for compliance, but for elderly support. Immigrant welcome, community gardens, youth engagement, no fines, no surveillance, no fear. And the first project, the Truth Wall, a mural painted across the side of the community center by local teens, seniors, and artists. It showed a woman holding a clipboard, being wrapped not by chains, but by vines growing from the hands of neighbors below her. Above, in bold letters, "We are not your HOA. We are a community." I asked Liv one night, while we watched kids draw with chalk on the sidewalk again, "Do you ever miss the work?" She took a long breath. "I miss the clarity," she said. "In federal work, there's mission and method. Out here it's messier, softer. But this matters more." Then she looked at me. "You don't have to wear a badge to stand for truth. Karen taught us something accidentally. That fake power works best when people stay quiet. That fear thrives in shadows. That if you repeat a lie with enough confidence, some folks will salute it. But when truth walks in, even the strongest clipboard falls apart." Call to action. If someone is using fake rules, made up authority, or fear to control your community, speak, organize, ask questions, and never assume someone holding a clipboard knows the law. Because the law, the real law, it lives in us. It lives in you. Let this story remind us community isn't built by enforcers. It's built by neighbors.